My child, you left me speechless. I do not say that lightly, and I do not say it to impress you. I say it because what you just came through, and the way you came through it, mattered more than you know. I sacrificed everything for you. And yet what you chose to do in silence, without proof, without reward, without knowing the outcome, revealed something rare. You stayed. You endured. You kept going when giving up would have made sense. Do not skip this moment. Do not rush past it. You have 24 hours before everything changes. Not because I am rushing you, but because awareness has a window, and that window is open right now. What you notice in this moment will shape how you move forward from here. This message did not find you by accident. You did not stumble into this randomly. Something in you paused when you could have kept scrolling. Something in you felt weight before you felt understanding. That pause matters. Most people will ignore moments like this. Not because they are punished, but because they never realize what they walked away from. They keep asking why life feels the same, why peace feels delayed, why confusion keeps returning. They stay busy, distracted, and unaware of the moment that could have clarified everything. But you were stopped for a reason. You are here because your heart was prepared to hear what others would dismiss or fear. Listen now, not with panic, not with skepticism, but with the quiet seriousness that has been forming in you through everything you survived. What happens next depends on what you do with these words. Not because my love is fragile, and not because you must prove anything, but because truth, once offered, must be received to become real in your life. Ignored truth does not disappear. It waits. And waiting truth often returns later as pressure. You left me speechless not because you were perfect, but because you stayed when leaving would have been easier. You stayed when your strength was low and your clarity was thin. You did not announce your endurance. You did not demand recognition. You simply kept going. That kind of persistence is rare. It does not impress the world, but it carries weight. I did not sacrifice everything so you would live afraid of getting it wrong. I sacrificed so you would live aware of how deeply you are held. And when you chose not to walk away during your hardest moments, when you refused bitterness, when you resisted numbness, when you stayed present even while hurting, it mattered. Moments like this do not repeat endlessly. Life moves quickly. Distractions return. Noise fills the space again. But right now you are still. Right now you are listening. That openness is not guaranteed tomorrow. This is why I am speaking now. You have 24 hours before everything changes. Not because something dramatic will fall from the sky, but because understanding changes how you walk. Once you see clearly, you cannot unsee. Once truth settles, your choices shift. And those shifts shape everything that comes next. You were not stopped by accident. You were stopped because you were ready. Readiness is not about intelligence or spirituality. It is about willingness to listen, to reflect, to be honest about how much it cost you to stay. Most people avoid understanding because understanding asks them to take their life seriously. It asks them to acknowledge that survival was not nothing, that they were protected, preserved, and carried. Many are not ready for that responsibility, but you stayed. And that tells me something about your heart. Listen now. Not with urgency driven by fear, but with attention. Attention is the beginning of wisdom. Attention is how cycles break. Attention is how peace finally catches up to survival. You are not being asked to perform. You are not being asked to prove yourself. You are being asked to notice. What you endured mattered. And this moment, right now, is asking you to receive that truth before you decide what comes next. You left me speechless not because of something dramatic you did, but because of how you endured. You stayed when leaving would have been easier. You remained present when disappearing would have felt safer. You continued forward when your strength was low and your clarity was thinner than you wanted to admit. You did not endure loudly. You did not turn your pain into a performance. You did not demand recognition or understanding. You simply kept going. That kind of endurance is rare. It does not look impressive to the world, but it carries weight that cannot be ignored. I saw the restraint you practiced when anger would have been justified. I saw the silence you chose when defending yourself would have felt satisfying. I saw the integrity you held when compromise would have made life easier. Those choices were not small. They were costly. And they revealed your heart. There were days when your strength was almost gone. When you moved forward out of habit rather than hope. When you woke up already tired, carrying responsibilities heavier than your capacity. Still, you did not abandon yourself. You did not let despair make your decisions. You stayed present even when presence felt painful. That kind of staying requires courage most people never develop. I watched you endure disappointment without letting it turn into bitterness. I watched you face misunderstanding without becoming cruel. I watched you hold your values steady when pressure tried to bend them. You were not perfect. You questioned. You doubted. You struggled internally. But you did not surrender what mattered most. Restraint like that is rare. It reveals a heart that remains steady even when shaken. You survived seasons that could have hollowed you out. Seasons where silence felt heavy. Seasons where answers did not come when you asked. Seasons where you wondered if your effort meant anything at all. You did not know if relief was coming. You did not know if clarity would arrive. Yet you chose honesty over pretense. You allowed yourself to feel without letting your emotions control you. That balance did not come naturally. It was learned through endurance. You may not see yourself as faithful because you expected faith to feel stronger, clearer, more confident. But faith often looks like showing up without certainty. It looks like staying when motivation disappears. It looks like trusting presence instead of outcomes. That is what you did. You resisted the urge to harden. Pain invites hardness. Disappointment encourages walls. But you kept your heart open even when openness made you vulnerable. You chose gentleness when life tried to make you sharp. That choice cost you more than you realize. You did not allow suffering to become your identity. You acknowledged it, but you did not become it. Many people survive hardship by losing themselves. You survived by holding on to who you are. There were moments when you felt unseen. When you wondered if anyone noticed how much effort it took just to keep going. You minimized it. You compared yourself to others. You told yourself your struggle was ordinary. But the weight of endurance is not measured by how it looks on the outside. It is measured by what it costs on the inside. You did not give up when hope felt thin. You did not disappear into distraction. You stayed connected to truth even when it was uncomfortable. That connection anchored you when everything else felt unstable. You did not choose the easiest way to survive. You did not numb yourself completely. You did not abandon your values to cope. You did not let pain poison your passion. You have no idea what was stopped because you stayed. And that is not said to frighten you. It is said gently, because knowing everything at once would have overwhelmed you. Some truths are revealed only after protection has finished its work. While you were focused on surviving the day, while you were trying to make sense of emotions you could not fully explain, there were paths being quietly closed and outcomes being interrupted without your awareness. You thought staying was endurance. It was also protection. There were decisions you almost made that would have led you into seasons of loss you were never meant to carry. You felt drawn toward exits that promised relief. You considered choices that offered quick comfort or escape. You did not take them. Sometimes not because you had clarity, but because something in you hesitated. That hesitation was not weakness. It was protection working through restraint. There were relationships that looked safe on the surface but would have slowly drained your identity. You felt the pull. You felt the familiarity. But something unsettled you just enough to keep you from giving yourself fully to what would have taken more than it gave. You did not know what you were avoiding. You only knew it did not feel right. Staying spared you from losses you never had to name. There were moments when despair tried to convince you that nothing would change, that your presence did not matter, that disappearing would make the pain stop. Those thoughts were not random. They were part of a battle you could not see clearly at the time. If you had followed them, the damage would not have been immediate. It would have been quiet, slow, and deep. Staying interrupted that path. I placed delays where speed would have harmed you. I allowed confusion where certainty would have rushed you forward too soon. I closed doors without explanation when open doors would have cost you later. You thought those delays were obstacles. They were shields. You thought confusion meant failure. It meant protection. There were battles you never had to fight because you never stepped into the territory where they were waiting. There were mistakes that would have reshaped your life in painful ways. You were spared not because you were perfect, but because you remained present long enough for redirection to occur. Protection requires time. It requires patience. It requires resisting the urge to force resolution. You gave protection room to work by not rushing away from your life when it felt heavy. You gave it space by not numbing yourself completely. You stayed present enough for intervention without force. There were habits you almost formed that would have become cages. Coping mechanisms that would have dulled you permanently. You felt tempted toward them. You considered them. But you did not commit. That pause was wisdom forming under pressure. There were futures that looked appealing but were built on compromise. You did not see the cost then. You only felt resistance. That resistance preserved your integrity. Integrity is expensive to rebuild once it is lost. You questioned closed doors. You wondered why things did not work out. You blamed yourself at times. But those endings were not rejection. They were rescue. You stayed instead of walking away in bitterness. And that choice protected how you see the world. Bitterness reshapes everything quietly. You were spared from carrying that weight forward. Some outcomes required your absence to be avoided. If you had disappeared emotionally, withdrawn fully, or decided nothing mattered, the damage would not have stopped with you. It would have rippled outward. Staying preserved not only you but what flows through you to others. You do not see all the versions of your life that were possible. You only see the one you are living now. That is mercy. If you could see every path you were diverted from, the weight of it would overwhelm you. Instead, you are here, steadier, clearer, carrying depth instead of regret. Stillness was not emptiness. Delay was not denial. Confusion was not failure. They were containment. I stopped collapse by slowing you down. I stopped loss by keeping you connected. I stopped destruction by keeping you grounded. There were moments when it felt like nothing was happening. Those were moments when much was happening beyond what you could see. Protection often feels like nothing changing. Even exhaustion was used to slow you. When strength was low, impulsive decisions lost their power. That slowness spared you years of rebuilding you never had to endure. You were protected from becoming someone who survived by losing themselves. There were voices you did not follow. Narratives you did not fully accept, even when they sounded convincing. You hesitated. That hesitation was discernment growing quietly. You do not need to know everything that was stopped to honor the truth. You only need to recognize this. Your staying was not passive. It was active protection working through your choices, your pauses, your restraint. You were spared so you could walk forward wisely, not fearfully, not recklessly. And the life you are living now exists because you stayed when leaving would have cost more than you knew. I sacrificed everything for you. And you have heard those words before. But this is not about guilt. This is not about pressure. This is not about obligation. This is about relationship. I did not sacrifice so you would live afraid of disappointing me. I did not give myself so you would spend your life trying to earn what was already given. I sacrificed so you would know how deeply you are held, especially in moments when you feel weakest. Love that demands repayment is not love. Love gives because giving is its nature. When you stayed, when you chose not to walk away from your life, not to harden your heart, not to disappear into numbness, you were not repaying a debt. You were responding to love even if you did not realize it at the time. There were moments when you felt crushed, when quitting felt reasonable, when letting go completely seemed like it might hurt less. You did not stay because it was easy. You stayed because something in you refused to believe that pain was the end of your story. That refusal was not arrogance. It was hope struggling to breathe. I did not sacrifice everything so you would never struggle. I sacrificed so struggle would not define you. Pain still touched you. Confusion still visited. Weariness still weighed on you. But none of these were given the final word. When you stayed through them, when you kept your heart open even when it hurt, you were living inside the space my sacrifice created. You were not earning